dive into source of funds. So, Rohit, source of funds or funding in general is a very important step of investment immigration, right? That's what it's built around. So the investment amount of 800K, I'll stick to 800K because that's all the projects ask for today. There are next to none, 1,050,000 projects. So when is the funding requirement, and do all the funds need to be invested right away from the start, or it can be done in stages?
Thanks, Abhi. Okay. So I'll begin by saying that, in my opinion, there are three amounts of money that you need to prove the source of funds. And I know Brandon referred to this earlier. Source of funds is the single most important piece of your EB-5 activity, presuming that you're going to be investing in a credible, well-established regional center like Golden Gate Global. You have a 956F approved, like Niral referred to it earlier. The immigration is now not going to worry about that as long as you're following the business plan. So you're back again focused on your source of funds. Three amounts that need to get established as the source of funds. One is your $800,000 investment. Two is the admin or the management fee that's negotiated between the investor and the regional center. Three is the filing fee for the 526E, which is $12,160. So those three amounts, I tell people, you got to document as source of funds, which means you got to prove that they're lawful. The word lawful doesn't mean it suffices if it comes from a bank account. You got to be able to trace it back to its origin and how did it develop till you actually used the money for EB-5, where it comes into the investor's account most times, and then goes from that account to the regional center's escrow account under the regional center's guidelines. So the source of funds is, and I think Niral and Brandon both referred to it earlier, takes the longest amount of time to do. According to me, it's easily a 1 to 3 month process, depending on how complicated the process is, depending on how quickly one can obtain the documents. And I know, like Niral said, we find ourselves needing to document every single penny. Yes, there was a decision last year, which I think from a different law firm, which basically said you can look at where the money is coming from apart, but that's much more of a last resort strategy as opposed to a first resort. That's not your best strategy, because although you have to deal with preponderance of the evidence, which only means it's more than likely that it's approvable, the immigration officers are looking for every single penny. So if you're not going to be able to do that, then you better expect an RFE, which I think most people don't like to get, because it just digs deeper and delves deeper into the source of funds, and you're opening up a can of worms. So source of funds, you got to work with your attorney very closely on it. Do not feel that the attorney is out there it's not a gotcha by the immigration attorney. It is trying to do their best for you, for the source of funds, to document it. And I've certainly had clients who've said, look, my accountants drive me crazy. You're not even an accountant. What are you doing to me? And that's fine. At the end of the day, when we get an approval without an RFE, there's usually a smile and a big thank you. And I think that effort is worth putting in right from the beginning. So source of funds, single most important thing. Work closely with your attorney on this. Don't feel they're out there to get you or to give you a hard time. That's what I would say. I mean, and of course, you got to comply with source of funds for the country from where you're getting the monies as well. Needless to say, I know that Brandon deals with a lot of investors from other countries. I deal pretty much primarily from India. So compliance with Indian tax regulations, the Reserve Bank of India, LRS rules, all of those things must be taken into account. And I, as a U.S. attorney, do not give advice on Indian law. I can connect them with lawyers in India who can guide them, but I think that's very important for investors to remember and to keep in mind.
I kind of agree with that. And what we as an industry see is that when I have a call with EB-5 investors, I can briefly talk about source of funds, but I always mention I can't represent them. And everyone is surprised to learn that it takes minimum of 4 weeks, can take up to 12 weeks to document source of funds. And here they are talking about a project and investing in it. And I'm like, the first step is retain an attorney. Start the work on the source of funds, because if it's complicated, this project may not even be available by the time you're done with that. Most people think, hey, we have a grasp of our source of funds, and they're shocked when they start working on it, on how tedious it is. So with that, Niral, I'll come to you. And in terms of setting expectations, right? how far back do we need to go to document source of funds, like really into the bank account statements, tax returns, etc.? Let's take an example of a real estate sale in that case.
Yeah. Yeah, so typically, anytime you're using an asset like real estate or even your stock portfolio, you need to document how you acquired that asset in the first place. So for real estate, you'll have a down payment and then you'll have financed the rest through a lender, through a mortgage. So you need to be able to document how you acquired the down payment and even the mortgage payment schedules. We're seeing requests from USCIS to document exactly how and when you earn the funds to make those mortgage payments as well. Now, I think everyone, even USCIS, understands that documentation more than 7 years ago. A lot of finance companies, banks, do not keep those on hand. So you can supplement certain things through secondary evidence like an affidavit, declarations, and things like that. But you need to give your attorney a complete understanding of your source of funds in order for us to strategize the best way forward. I think one of the more common things I've seen pop up, I don't know about you guys, but it's Zelle transactions. We're seeing USCIS really come after, these US bank accounts. And if they see like a ton of Zelle transactions, they want to make sure that these are accounted for because, you're in your bank account, it's like a bucket of water. These funds are commingled. So even if you're saying it's W-2 income, if after that you receive some payments from some friends for whatever reason, you may have to go in and explain that. So, and that's kind of what's adding to the time it takes to prepare the source of funds. They weren't as strict about this as before, but I think recently they have become a little stricter on these topics.
And not only Zelle, Niral, but crypto as well, because U.S. immigration is a bureaucracy. Like, they're used to doing things a certain way. So like when, I always kind of say on like the project side, like, there's no bonus points for creativity in EB-5, only the creation of avoidable headaches. And you extend that to like new concepts such as Zelle and crypto. And then if they haven't seen it before, their natural inclination is to, not approach it initially from a positive perspective. And so, so if you're funding your source of funds through crypto or Zelle or some of these newer kind of financial platforms, be prepared to have to explain it significantly more detail than if you were just selling your, RSUs from your company, which are pretty straightforward.